Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you some audiobook recommendations. Now, before I get stuck into the recommendations, I think I should just tell you a little bit about what I look for in an audiobook. And for me, for an audiobook, I'm not actually listening for music, I'm not actually looking for multiple voice narration, I'm not really looking for all of those extra things that people tend to look for. I'm just looking for a story told well. I just want someone to read me the story clearly, well, and in an engaging way. It doesn't need to have any of those extra effects for me to think that it is a very good audiobook. I picked out 10 here that are good books by themselves, but I also do think are very, very good audiobooks and listens. And I do use this book subscription service called Script, which has audiobooks on it and also ebooks, among other things. You can borrow as many audiobooks as you want in a month, so it's not Audible limited to X amount of credits equals X amount of books. You can listen to your own pleasure by paying the monthly subscriptions amount, and I'll have a link down below at the bottom of this video. If you want to try Script for 60 days for free, click that link and I'll also get some free days as well. But without further ado, let me give you 10 audiobooks that I think are very worth listening to. So the very first audiobook I want to recommend is Child 44 by Tom Rob Smith. This is a historical fiction thriller. It's absolutely brutal and I love it so much. I think I can safely say it's made the list of my favourite thrillers. I read this one for a video idea where I read my best friend's favourite book and she read my favourite, and I half read this physically, half listened to it on audiobook, and I really liked the audiobook experience that I completely switched to it by the end of reading the book and the end of my reading experience. I thought the narration was just done so very well. It got the accents down to pat, the Russian accents, which did make me more involved in the story and just more in the setting and integrated. It's about this agent who kind of gets disillusioned and understands that the way in which Stalin has set up the KGB is not actually the best. When a line of murders happens that all look the same, he gradually starts to understand there is a serial killer on the loose, but he's slipping through the system because of the ways in which Stalinist law is put in place, and he decides to go and to hunt down the serial killer himself. It's just brutal, lots of body gore, lots of violence, but it's so suspenseful, so good, and such good character building. I love Leo as a main character. There's also a very strong female character in this one, and it was great all the way through. Sadly, the sequel was narrated by somebody else and I didn't think it was as good, so I had to read the second book physically. Another audiobook is one that I'm listening to right now, and that is For the Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a high fantasy book where we follow this main character and he just tells and recites his life to us and all of the things that we've been through. I am 2/3 of the way through. I started it yesterday and I'm completely engaged by this audiobook. I have listened to about 9 hours in a weekend, and I'm hoping to listen to the last 5 after I finish filming this video, because it is just so addictive and it's just so good. And what amazes me is that the narration is not doing anything unique, it's not doing anything special, it's just telling the story in a very engaging way and nailing all of the accents, and really just putting the accents on for different characters is bringing the story to life even more. I'm very vague about the synopsis because there's not really much I can tell you. The back of the book doesn't tell you that much, so I don't want to either, but it's one of those slow-paced, character-driven fantasy books where you're just following a main character, you're following what he's been through in his life and the ways in which he's learned magic, studied it, and put it to use. Another very good audiobook was For the Standin by Lily Chu. I read half of this physically and I read the other half of this on audio, and you can tell it's going to be a very good audiobook because it was originally an Audible original book that was so good in audio that they had to publish it physically. That's how good of a book it is. And it's all about a girl who is not happy with her job, not content with where she's at in life, and just trying to look after her mother who's in a home for dementia, when she accidentally gets mistaken for a celebrity. And a couple of days later, that celebrity reaches out and asks if she would mind stepping into her shoes, pretending to be her for some days so that she can have time off. I feel like what's very important in these stories is getting to know the reasons why the main character wants time off, and I thought this was a really believable reason, and I really quite liked the reason behind it. I loved our main character. I related to her personally a lot, with the way that she's just trying to always better herself, grow in confidence and make her life into what she really wants to be doing. I admire that drive, even if she isn't entirely aware that she has it and possesses it. The love interest is really sweet, but what I liked about the narration is that it just brought the story to life. And it's a rom-com-y kind of book, but it was just easy to listen to, easy to read, and a joy to do so. The next audiobook I have to recommend you is a middle grade book, and that is The Great Dream Robbery by Greg Smith and Chris, I can't remember their names exactly, but The Great Dream Robbery. It's such a fun book. I was reading it and just having so much fun with it that I thought, oh, I really hope the audiobook narration for this makes it just as fun. So I listened to a few chapters, and yes, it's narrated by the authors themselves, and the both of them have put on voices and kind of made it a conversation with each other. And the way the book is written and the way the story goes, it's really kind of a fun, glitzy, poking fun at different things story. So the way that they brought that to life with their funny voices and the way that they sing bits of the book, I just thought it was done really, really well. And I know I'm one of those people who say, with my audiobooks, I just want good narration, but this is one of the few exceptions where all of the facades that they brought to the book just worked very well. And The Great Dream Robbery is a middle grade book about a girl whose dad is working on dreams and studying them and trying to find out the ways in which you could bring dream stuff into real life. And he ends up in a dream sleep kind of coma, and she knows that he would never make that mistake. So someone is intentionally putting him under a dream sleep coma, and she's gonna figure out what is going on. And that is the adventure that they go on in this book. The book I just have to recommend you is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is one that I listened to entirely on audiobook, and I would have it no other way. Her memoir is so lovely to listen to. It's just like listening to Michelle Obama sit across the room for you and tell you all about her life in the most lyrical and beautiful voice possible. And that is what you get in Becoming, seeing the First Lady's life all the way from her childhood to her being First Lady and what that's like, and you get to learn a bit about what it means to be president, some of the things that the president goes through, but it's really about the difficulties of being a mother, of having your own independent career and your own independent interests, while also being thrust into the light, not by something that you're doing, but by something that your husband is doing. And I just think she handled that book with so much grace, and I learned so very much, and it was just so fascinating to learn her story and just to have it beautifully read out to me by the author herself. So this is a case of, I think the audiobook is a very good way to read these, even if I don't actually recommend these as a whole, and that is a complete collection of Sherlock Holmes. I would not have finished reading that whole complete collection if it wasn't for Stephen Fry reading me the stories. If you don't know, Stephen Fry is a master audiobook narrator. He just knows how to put on voices, but also when to just keep it calm and keep it even and tell you the story. And he made Sherlock Holmes and John Watson come to life for me in just ways I wouldn't have expected. I had to read quite a few of these for university, so it was quite nice to listen to them and just to get some of my reading done via audiobook. But overall, the only reason why I finished the complete collection is because Stephen Fry was reading them to me and I wanted to hear his voice, to be frank. So I do think it's a very good audiobook and really nice to just listen to those mysteries unfold in your ear. I also would recommend Don't Touch My Hair. I listened to this and I read it in a whole evening, just all in one go. It was brilliant. It's read by the author herself, and it's all about, it's a non-fiction book that's all about hair and black hair, the history of black hair, why black hair is important, black hair in TV, black hair in books. It's all about black hair, and I learned so much about my own hair that's on my own head, and I just find that very entertaining and fascinating. But even for someone who isn't black, you could just learn a lot about why black hair culture is a thing, why it matters, some of the etiquette, like not touching it, and just loads of different fascinating things. I enjoyed the audiobook experience. I did go and get myself a copy so I could look at some of the pictures, but it was just really a very good listen. And I think if you struggle with reading non-fiction, a very good way to get into it is through audiobook, and I would recommend it for this one. I would also recommend an audiobook for the memoir Hope Not Fear by Hassan Akkad, and this is a memoir about his life as a Syrian refugee. It's not just about that, it's about him being a Syrian refugee, but then also him working in the COVID pandemic wards. And the way that it juxtaposed those two things was really fascinating to me, because it just talked about humanity and the refugee crisis and what it truly means to be a refugee, and the ways in which you're treated by other people in the UK or wherever you find safety, but also the ways in which you're treated and the trauma that he went through, which led to him becoming a refugee. And it was just painful. And there's no other way to describe it. And I think I've read some horror books and then I've read this, and this is more horrifying because it's real and it really happened to him, and it's just heartbreaking. And listening to the audiobook is quite an experience, because even though you know that what you're listening to is sad, you know it's disappointing, and not just for the ways you might assume, but also just disappointing for the way that people in the UK treated him and things like that. You can also tell when he's reading the passages about some of the traumatic things that he's experienced. Please, there are lots of content warnings for this, I'll leave it down below. You can hear his voice trembling, and you can hear him struggling to recite those moments in his life. And I think seeing that emotion injected in there it makes it a very good audiobook, because it's hitting home the emotions, but it makes it an even better audiobook because I cannot see how anybody can listen to that story and escape unmoved. And that is exactly his aim, and he mastered it. Best memoir I read last year, hands down. Let's take it back to fiction for a moment. I also recommend the audiobook for Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and this is a story about a black woman who is searching for love, and she ends up finding it in lots of the wrong places. It's kind of a black modern classic book. I recommend the audiobook above reading it as a physical copy. I tried to read it physically, but I could not do it. It's written in Southern American patois. I am a black British woman. I would struggle to read Southern American language books already. I could do it, but I would be slower. But then throwing on patois on top, it was just a bit too hard for me to understand the text written within the dialect. However, listening to it, it's just like hearing an accent, and just getting the story with that accent layered on top of it, but also just getting to read the story without me having to think too much about understanding what I'm reading. It was great. It's one of my favorite books. I really like that as a black modern classic. I just think it's fascinating. I think the descriptions of nature are fascinating. I think her journey is fascinating, and it's so worth reading, and it's such a good audiobook. Recommend. And then last but not least, the other audiobook I'm going to recommend to you is The Transgender Issue by Shon, Faye, and I think it's a very important book for right now. There are so many trans rights that have been stripped away from them, and there's so many trans rights that they have yet to even be granted. And it was just such an insightful look at, specific to the UK as well, some of the things that are going on with trans issues and what the real transgender issue is, which doesn't have anything to do with public toilets, if you were wondering. It has a lot more to do with people understanding of trans people, but also their rights, what they deserve, some of the issues that they're facing in terms of homelessness and poverty, and why that is and where that stems from. And I appreciated seeing something that was UK focused and also just so clearly well researched and so well written that really got down to the heart of things. I learned so much reading that book. So there you have it. Those are 10 audiobooks that I really recommend. If you like audiobooks, I think it might be different from other people's lists where they would be recommending things from different reasons. Please let me know in the comment section down below what is one audiobook that you would recommend to me, so that I can find some more good things to listen to. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't you forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!